Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat is here. I feel like every time Shabbat comes, it still feels equally exciting. It's the nice deep breath, in particular during these very hard and heavy times. And our Parsha this week doesn't really give us much of a break from the reality of our world in a way that also feels different than in the past. I think when we've come to Ki Tetzei in the past, it has felt like a distant idea. It talks a lot about war. It has a lot of laws and rules, some miscellaneous, but particularly it begins actually with a law around when captives are being taken, and just to say our hearts have been shattered continuously, and we continue to pray that those who are in captivity are brought home safely, that those in Gaza are continuing to get the aid and the help and the support that they so desperately need, and that we see an end to the violence. And so while I'm going to do a teaching about the parasha that goes a little bit more inward, just to say that this parasha does very much so talk about our reality today and push us to be moral and ethical in the ways in which we go about war. But the beginning of the parasha, it opens with these words, Ki tetzei lemilchama al oivecha. If you go out, when you take the field and go against your enemies, it says that once you go there, you're going to find God, and God is going to deliver your captives into your hands. And you're going to take them captive. God is going to take the enemies and deliver them into your hands as captives. And the Baal Shem Tov, along with many other Hasidic teachers, likes to read this in a less literal way, although, as I said, the reality today, it feels hard to hear these words, and talks about how, particularly now in this time of year of Elul, when we end up always reading this parasha, that this is not necessarily a war in the fields in the way that we're thinking about the fields going out into battle, but that this is the spiritual war that we are on, the spiritual ascent that we are making toward Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And the Baal Shem Tov teaches that the Torah states when you go forth in the singular, Ki Tetzei, when in the singular, every individual Jew has no greater enemy than our evil inclination, our Yetzer Hara. If you go forth to war against this Yetzer Hara, Adonai God will deliver it into your hands. The Torah promises that you will emerge victorious. Not only that, but you will take it captive so that you will be able to harness the forces of that Yetzer Hara, of that evil inclination to serve God. It's a beautiful and also very challenging invitation for what this time of year is. And it's a very, I want to say, in some senses, we said the reality, it's more of a drash than the pshat, staying at the level of what the text is saying. But this is a time of spiritual battle. And I want to say that it also is mirroring what's happening physically in our reality, that this time of year and all of the questions that we find ourselves asking, and I'm going to talk much more about this tomorrow morning, but all of the questions that are weighing on us, the moral, the ethical, the spiritual questions of this time. And what this teaching says is no matter what, the Yetzer Hara is always going to be that enemy for us. We always have it. Each one of us has it, whether we like it or not. And if we are willing to go out and do the hard work, God will help us, and it will be delivered to us, and we'll be able to use it. It's not going to go away. It's not going to go away, but we can pivot, and we can use it to do good in the world. We can use it to channel light in the places that are the darkest, that sometimes those things that we find to be our deepest enemies, the things that we have the most trouble with, this is the time of year to face them. And it takes a lot of hard work. It feels like a battle. And it's not only this time of year that we do this, we do it all the time. And what I would like to say is that for me, I think in particular, Shabbat feels like a weekly opportunity for us to be doing this. That we get to take a break from all of the rush and the chaos and the craziness of the week, of the work and homework and school and stresses and prioritizing things that we don't necessarily even feel like are our priority.
And Shabbat says, how are we living our lives? How do you want to be living your life? Where is your soul? Where are your priorities? Are they at the center of what we're doing? Are they not? And this Elul, this time, is acute when we ask those questions, and Shabbat in particular also. So now we have an Elul and a Shabbat. So on this Shabbat of Ki Tetzei, I pray that each of us feels that we have the courage, that we have the strength, that we have the anchoring in our tradition, in the people around us, in our community, to be able to go out to do this very hard and very meaningful work of channeling our Yetzer Hara and turning it into the goodness which we so desperately need in our world. Shabbat Shalom.